everyone. So, John Bernthal's return as Frank Castle in The Punisher One Last Kill may sound final based on the title, but Marvel clearly has much bigger plans for the character. After years away from live action following the end of Netflix Punisher in 2019, Frank's recent MCU comeback has quickly turned into the start of a brand new chapter rather than a farewell tour. The Punisher officially re entered the Marvel Cinematic Universe through Daredevil Born Again Season 1, where Bernthal immediately reminded audience why his version of Frank Castle remained one of Marvel's most intense and emotionally layered characters. Even though his role in that series was relatively limited, it was enough to reignite fan excitement around the character. Now, The Punisher One Last Kill gives Frank his own standalone MCU story, filling in some of the gaps after his escape from Kingpin's capture and pushing the anti-hero into darker emotional territory once again. But despite the emotional weight of the special presentation, Marvel has already confirmed where Frank Castle will appear next: Spider-Man Brand New Day. That movie is set to mark the Punisher's first appearance in a live-action theatrical film in nearly 20 years and his official big-screen debut within the MCU itself. The timing makes One Last Kill feel less like a conclusion and more like a transition point designed to prepare Frank for a larger role moving forward. What makes his involvement in Spider-Man Brand New Day so interesting is how unusual the pairing feels on paper. Frank Castle and Peter Parker couldn't be more different philosophically. Spider-Man is defined by restraint, responsibility, and hope, while the Punisher operates through lethal force and brutal vengeance. Even in the comics, the relationship has always been tense because Frank represents the exact kind of violent extremism Peter refuses to embrace. That contrast is likely the biggest reason Marvel wants to bring them together now. Early detail already suggests Brand New Day will have a much darker tone compared to the previous MCU Spider-Man trilogy, and Frank Castle's presence immediately reinforces that shift. It also opens the door for Peter to interact with more grounded street level heroes instead of constantly operating alongside cosmic or multiversal characters. Still, Frank's role in Brand New Day raises a lot of questions. Unlike Daredevil, Spider Man doesn't currently have a strong on screen relationship with the Punisher in the MCU. Marvel will need to establish why their paths cross and what forces them into the same story. Whether Frank becomes an uneasy ally, an antagonist, or something in between remains unclear, but the clash between their worldviews alone could end up being one of the movie's strongest dynamics. Beyond Spider Man Brand New Day, Frank Castle's MCU future becomes much less certain, although there are some obvious possibilities. The most likely next appearance is Daredevil Born Again Season 3. Given how connected Frank is to Matt Murdock's corner of New York, it would feel strange for Marvel to keep him away for too long. His absence from Born Again Season 2 already stood out to many fans, especially since Season 1 heavily reintroduced him into the MCU world. One Last Kill seems designed to explain what Frank was doing during that gap while also positioning him for future appearances. There's also speculation about whether Marvel could eventually revive Punisher as an ongoing Disney Plus series again. Right now, nothing has been confirmed, and One Last Kill is officially been treated as a special presentation rather than the beginning of a new show. Still, the amount of focus Marvel is suddenly giving Frank Castle in 2026 makes it hard to imagine the studio bringing Bernthal back only for a handful of appearances. Fans have responded strongly to his return, and Marvel clearly understands the value of keeping one of its most beloved anti-heroes active. As for larger MCU projects like Avengers Doomsday, Frank Castle currently feels like a difficult fit. The Punisher works best in grounded street level stories where moral ambiguity and violence carry emotional consequences. Throwing him into a massive multiversal war alongside gods and super soldier could risk diluting what makes the character effective. Unless Marvel heavily expands the role of street heroes in those crossover films, Frank will probably remain tied to New York focused narrative involving characters like Daredevil, Spider Man, potentially other returning defenders. What seems clear now is that One Last Kill was never truly intended to be Frank Castle's final story. The title feels more symbolic than literal, reflecting Frank's ongoing struggle to leave the Punisher identity behind rather than teasing his death or retirement. In reality, Marvel appears to be positioning Bernthal as one of the defining faces of the MCU's darker, street level future. And as long as John Bernthal remains interested in playing the role, it's hard to imagine Marvel letting go of a character who still generates this much excitement every time he returns. Thank you for watching. Bye.